first time.
Have these already or no?
No, these are things.
This one I have.
Yes, I think you do, but I think there might be some updates. I'll check with one. And on this one, there has been some updates.
Okay. Are we projecting the packet?
Yeah, but we no, I think I think we can. I think we're gonna be live stream.
Oh, who? Okay. No response yet? Yeah, I'm the only one on public comments? Alrighty.
easier to put it.
Chocolatito de... We can get the one from... We can get the one from Commissioner Suarez. if you want. We can say what he has there on this thing. You know what? Let me do this. Let me do this.
The microphone on the podium, is it on?
Test.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you all to the City of San Juan Commission meeting today, May 28th, 2013, and if we can all stand for the invocation. Mayor Pro Tem, can you lead us in an invocation?
Please bow your heads. Lord, thank you for reuniting us here again today to conduct the business of your city, the city of San Juan. Please guide us in making all the appropriate decisions for the good of our community and the good of our city and all of its citizens. In your name we pray, amen.
We can face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Y'all may be seated. Under public comments, I put myself to discuss two things, information. First of all, I want to thank the participants of the Memorial Day ceremony from yesterday. It was a great ceremony. We had several veterans come and be part of it, and hopefully it continues to grow as the years go. I want to thank the community members that, our city staff members that were very involved, in very particular Amy Alvarado, who spearheaded it, with the leadership of Gus Elizondo, Ms. Armandina Cecin, and Bobby Rodriguez, and the rest who participated. It was a memorable event. I want to thank the police for sending out their honored guard with the flags, and the fire department for the first responders or firefighters with the engines and also with their presence. So thank you all. And the other one is we are now having our meetings starting as of today here in this facilities. We're very proud to be able to also announce that we are now being webcast so that our community throughout can hear, and anywhere can be able to tune in and hear its government taking place and decisions being made. That definitely goes for transparency, and so we're very proud of that under the direction of Hussein Baca, who set up our system. And this is also as a result of a grant that we got from AEP that helped us buy the equipment to set up so that this can take place. And so today's going to be a trial basis. Hopefully it all goes well. And you'll be able to see it. We're going to have our package up for our members here so you can see what we're looking at. And then you can always know that this is going to be archived, and you'll be able to come back to any meeting to be able to look at, or if you missed, to replay. So congratulations to our community for making that possible. Now, under presentations, under A is presentation of the annual financial report for the City of San Juan, Texas for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2012. And we have Mr. Noel Garza, CPA, who is our city auditor, present here. Good evening, Mr. Garza. Can you get that mic closer to you?
Yes, ma'am. Come to present to you the results of the annual audit for the City of San Juan. As of the end of September 30th, 2000. To present the results of the audit for the City of San Juan as of the end of September 30th, 2012. I'll try to keep the presentation brief. The report has quite a bit of information in it, and I've already sat with and gone over the report in detail with Mr. J.J. Rodriguez, but I'll cover as much as you all would like, and as much or as little, and whatever works within the time frame. I'll begin by indicating on page 2 of your report. You'll see our auditor's financial report. You let me know. Okay. So on page 2 of your audit report, you'll see our auditor's opinion. And on this opinion, this is the basic opinion where we've rendered, as a result of the financial audit and our review analysis and testing of the financial records of the city. And you'll notice on the third paragraph that we make a statement that says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above fairly present in all material respects, and I'm going to paraphrase, for the City of San Juan as of September 30th, 2012. So because it's, we've rendered an unqualified opinion, which is the highest rendering that we can render. That indicates that we didn't find any items or items that were significantly, that required significant adjustment or reclassification or correction that would require us to have modified that opinion. So we felt very comfortable with the financial statements as they were presented and prepared, and the testing added to that level of comfort. I'll just jump to the financial statements. Page 13 is your balance sheet for the governmental funds.
Garza, may I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
The highlights that you stated on page 4, you will be touching on the information that you are going to discuss?
Page 4?
You just, the financial highlights.
Oh, I can certainly cover those if you like.
Please.
Okay. At the beginning of the report, we have a section called Management Discussion and Analysis, where we try to condense the results of the operation and financial status of the city in narrative form, where it's a little more understandable to the non-accountant and a little more, it's a little simpler to understand. So just the highlights that we pointed out in this narrative, I'll just point out to you. The first one that says that the net assets increased by $704,000. Net assets refers to the full accrual balance sheet, which I can cover in a little more detail. And it's a little different than the normal financial statements, but we do cover it anyway. The business type activities net assets increased by 1.6 million, and the governmental activities decreased by 895,000. Now, below that, the next statement says that during the year, the city had expenses that were 1.1 million less than 13.3 generated in taxes and other revenues. In the business type activities, which are your enterprise funds, revenues increased from 7.95 to 8.07 million, or 1.6%, while the expenses increased from 6.5 to decreased from 6.5 to 6.47, relatively unchanged. The general fund, the one that's most prevalent and mostly inquired is the general fund, and that one ended the fund balance with a fund balance of $3.1 million for the year. You know, just as a reminder, your fund balance is the city's savings, or it's the funds that are available for the city commission to undertake projects if they need be, or in case of emergency, have funds available to address this emergency situation. So the city ended at $3.1 million in fund balance. I'll make that correction. Not a problem. No problem. So those are just a few of the highlights, Mayor. Now, to actually be able to refer to some of those numbers on the governmental funds is on page 13 and 14.
The only other thing you did not, I heard you on page 4. The resources available for appropriations were $250,000 less than budgeted for in the general fund.
Yes, ma'am.
You'll discuss that as we get to that page?
You will have there's a schedule on budget to actual comparison, and I'll cover it at that point, Mayor. Page 13 is your balance sheet for the governmental funds. There are some schedules on pages 10, 11, and 12. We don't typically cover those because those are prepared on a full accrual method, which is different than the governmental accounting method that the cities have normally been prepared, financial statements have been prepared on. And they include items that are not covered on the governmental, but it does cause some confusion because on this page 13 and 14, this balance sheet does not, if you'll notice there, it does not include fixed assets and it does not include long-term debt. Those are on the full accrual method, and that's dictated by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board requirements for governmental accounting. Traditionally, these are the schedules that have been presented, but I might have the date wrong, but in 2004, 2005 perhaps, we were required to implement these schedules to address concerns that it actually puts those reports in a format that for-profit enterprises could be more accustomed to reading, because a for-profit enterprise, their financial statements would include assets and long-term debt. So there was always been some confusion reading, going back and forth. So we were required at that point then to implement the full accrual schedules, which are those, but it does lead to some confusion because when we look at net assets there, net assets is a different term than fund balance, and they're very different and distinct, and it tends to cause confusion, and it can be misleading if you're not careful on how they're interpreted. So they're there because they're required, but for general operating purposes, your balance sheet, the governmental is what you would receive on a monthly basis throughout the year on your reporting schedules.
And these schedules are schedules that you put or that we provided the format for?
You provide the trial balance to us, and then we incorporate that trial balance into a software that generates the reports.
On page 7,
Yes.
under revenues?
Yes, ma'am.
And under miscellaneous, when you were provided these numbers and you look under, it says under governmental activities for 2012, 2.2 million. Why is it placed under it's not miscellaneous, I think, is for the amount. Do you answer those questions? That's just something, we have on the accounting side at our city.
Again, this section has to do with the full accrual method of accounting, and they will have differences that are not included on the typical government funds accounting.
And my question is, when you look at these and you see the increases from one year to the next.
Yes, ma'am.
which is quite significant, do you then go and ask what the breakdown of what miscellaneous is?
Absolutely. As part of our testing, we'll analyze the different sources of revenue and looking at the backup sources and conduct testing and analysis to ascertain the validity and the appropriateness of the funds, the funding, and/or the revenues that are being reported.
And I was wondering if that was a bond issuance. I mean, that's the only thing to think of.
You know, I honestly, Mayor, I'd have to go back and look.
Okay, because I looked for the explanation, I didn't find it. I know that was one of the ones that you make reference when we see some of the changes. I couldn't put back together with your
Let me check and see if it's
comparisons, so-
listed over here. A big component of that, Mayor, is going to be the forfeitures that
Okay.
that the police department received.
Okay.
They received $1.6 million in forfeitures
And that's
during
probably
the
what it
year.
is.
And that's the vast majority of that number.
That explains it.
Okay. So, you know, that will tend to skew it, if you'll notice from the previous
Yes.
year. But because that was that big one-time forfeiture award, it really kind of causes numbers to look distorted.
That makes sense. I just didn't find your note on that or
Yes,
any
ma'am.
kind of references.
And, you know, if there are things that I don't cover, I mean, by all means, I'll be happy to sit with any one of you at, whether it be phone or in person, to go over as much detail as you like. I just don't like to cover so much here that it just drags on for, you know, hours, because I can talk for quite a while.
I can ask quite a bit.
And that's okay. So on pages 13 and 14, that's the balance sheet.
Okay,
Your first column is the general fund, and as you know, the general fund is your operating fund that the city utilizes on a day-to-day basis to operate the city. And this is a balance sheet, so it's a snapshot picture of what things looked like on September 30th. So you'll notice it's broken down into different types of assets: cash, investments, taxes receivable, and so on. And total assets at that point were $4.8 million for the general fund, compared to just over $5 million last year. And so it was a very small decrease, $200,000 decrease. In the next section is your liabilities, which includes accounts payable, wages, accrued wages, and deferred revenues. What that deferred revenues includes are property taxes that have been assessed but not collected. And so accounting-wise, we have to record it. We can't record it as revenue. It's recorded as a deferred revenue, and once it's collected, it becomes revenue. The difference between your assets and liabilities is your fund balance. And here's where you'll see the $3.1 million that we had referred to in the highlights that the city ended in the general fund. The other columns are other revenue or other funds that the city has, with the vast majority, many different ones listed under other, which there's a schedule further back in the report that highlights the individual funds. But there's some that met some criteria that required us to disclose them here on the front page. The second one being the EDC fund, then your forfeiture fund, and then you notice you have your debt service, and the other, which is a summation of many, including your capital project funds. So if you read over to the right, you'll notice that the total governmental funds had total assets of $9.6 million. Your total liabilities were at $2.2, and your fund balance was at $8.4 million for all governmental funds. Now, this does not, because these are governmental funds, it does not include your utility funds. Your water and sewer and your solid waste are separate, and so and I'll cover those schedules, but they're not included in this because they are considered enterprise funds. And an enterprise fund is typically a fund that is intended to be self-sufficient and operating within, providing enough revenue to cover its expenses. Whereas a governmental fund has taxes and other sources that help to generate revenues to compensate. On pages 16 and 17, this is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. That's a technical name for it, but just loosely, this would be your income statement. And so you'll notice in the general fund, your total revenues were $8.9 million, which the largest being your property taxes of $4.4 million, your state sales taxes of $2.2 million, and then charges for services at $1 million, which are permits and quite a few different types of permits that the city has in place. Franchise taxes of $600,000 and other small ones that were collected throughout the year, resulting in $8.9 million of total revenue for the general fund. And then you'll notice below that your expenditures, and we have that broken down into different functional categories. delineating your general government, public safety, public works, culture and recreation, and those, you can see each respective amount that was expended during the year and totaled at $9 million. So there was a slight decrease. Expenditures did exceed your revenues by $141,000, and then there was some transfers out to general fund, to the other funds, and you'll notice those listed. And so that resulted in a decrease of $225,000 for the year. So the beginning fund balance was $3.3 million, and it ended at $3.1 million at the end of the year.
And that would have been taken out because of the deficiency.
Yes, ma'am. It's a reduction
That's
because
how
your
much it was taken.
expenditures exceeded your revenues. When all things said, when you're able to go a full year, and with the uncertainties in tax collections and property tax collections and sales tax collections, when you're able to get within $141,000, it's not a bad ending for the year. Of course, you would like to have the revenues exceed when available or when practical, but in this case, you didn't quite hit that mark. You'll notice across the board the different revenues for all the different funds, and the extreme right column shows your total governmental funds had revenues of $13.1 million and $13.8 million for expenditures.
Special Revenue Fund?
The EDC fund, the first one. The second one is the forfeiture fund. You'll notice there that the EDC... Asset forfeiture, yes, sir. On page 19, this will show you your budget to actual comparison for the general fund. So here you're able to see how the revenues and expenses measured against the budget that had been submitted to you all and approved by the commission for the year.
What page, I'm sorry?
On page 19, Mayor.
When you put I want to understand those columns. You have original and final. Those are our numbers, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then your actual amounts means,
The actual realized revenues and expenses, these are the numbers that come from that income statement that was on the other page, on page
the
16.
differences you were talking about, is that?
This will show you where you'll be able to see the differences on the, how that $251,000, the appropriation, the comment that you made on the narrative
Yes.
that said about the 251 is right here on page 19 for total revenues. You'll notice that your final budget for revenues was $9.1 million, and your actual realized revenues was 8.9. So your budget didn't quite, your actual realized did not quite meet your
Gotcha.
budget. Okay,
Gotcha.
and that's where the
So
total comes
we
from.
go back and fill in those numbers with the money from the unrestricted.
Yes, if you're absolutely correct, when your revenues don't meet your budget, and then of course your expenditures exceed or meet your budget, if you get into a deficit situation, you have to fund it through your fund balance to make ends meet. And so here you'll notice that what the first line item shows your property taxes. That you had budgeted $4.6 million and you actually realized $4.4 million. So it didn't quite get the collections that you had anticipated, and for a variety of reasons, it's not uncommon, in this economy. The second being property taxes. There you did exceed, sales taxes. You did exceed your projections. So that's always good. And then you have all the different ones, the franchise taxes and penalties and interest on property taxes, and so on. And so when you look at them in aggregate, you have the $8.9 million in revenues and the 9.1 budgeted revenues. Below that are the expenditures, and again, we have these categorized by functional category, and these are the budgets for each of those categories: general government, your initial, your ending, and then the realized. Your ending general government budget was $2.4 million, and you actually expended $2.2 million. So you did realize some savings there by not expending the entire amount that had been budgeted. So I always, I always commend the cities or governments for, for not spending just for the sake of spending because it's in the budget. So, it takes a lot of foresight and oversight and conservative philosophy to try to spend only what's needed. And so here you can tell that, you didn't spend it just because it was budgeted. So the departments were cognizant of the trying to save money and not realize those expenditures if not required. Then you'll notice there's public safety listed below that, and then culture and recreation, public works and culture and recreation listed also with their budgets and their actuals. Public works, it shows the $700,000, and then only $666 were expended, so it did realize savings also, as did your culture and recreation, did not expend everything that had been budgeted. So again, it's always, I like to highlight these because these, whenever you don't exceed your budget on the expenditure side, that's a good thing. And then when your revenues exceed your budget, that's also a good thing. So those are the two positives that we try to look for, and the city has plenty of those noted there. On pages 20 and 21, this is your balance sheet and income statement for the proprietary funds, which are your utility funds and solid waste. And here you'll see the balance sheet for those, and you'll notice the income statement. Now, if you notice on this schedule, this does include fixed assets and long-term debt because they're recorded on an full accrual method versus governmental, and that's the reason why we have to separate them and show them separately, because they're accounted for on a full accrual because it's a for-profit operation. They're intended to cover their own expenses, and if they were able to realize some savings, some profits to help with future expansion, well then that is great. But that's the main distinction between the two, and the reason that we have to separate them and show them separately, because it's two different accounting methods. But you'll notice here where your total assets were $38 million for your utility fund, and the liabilities of 5.4. Now, but you have a lot invested in your fixed assets and your non-current assets. You have $30 invested in your infrastructure throughout the city, the water and sewer systems. So so that money has been invested over the years to provide services to the community. And then you have your liabilities and long-term debt associated with that, and then the difference is in this case, your net assets.
Non-major enterprise fund has on liabilities but nothing on the assets. What is that?
This was a new fund that was created during the year in response to bond covenant. The 2012 bond covenant required that the city establish a separate INS fund for the utilities, and so this is where it was first created and recorded. And you'll notice it has very little activity because basically the money that's transferred from the utility funds over into this account, this fund, to pay the outstanding debt. And so really for all practical sense, it's going to have practically nothing at the end of the year because you transfer only what you need to spend to make your debt payments, and so it results in very little. The only thing it does show is accrued interest from the last bond payment to the end of the year, and the same with accounts payable, that just small accruals.
And then we take the interest out and it's about the liabilities, then.
Yes, ma'am, that'll be paid in the subsequent year because it's a payable at this point, and so in 12/13 it'll be paid off. And so you'll notice on the next page, we have the operating expense and the interest expense for the year, which are just the accruals for those days that had not been paid at that point. Again, these are utility funds and enterprise funds, which are recorded under a full accrual method and not under the governmental accounting. There are many notes that are listed after those financial statements that help provide more detail to some of the numbers that are presented. And there's quite a few that go on. And then beyond that is the combining schedule, which shows the different minor funds that the city had, governmental funds, and you'll notice there's a.
What page, sir?
On page 41, Mayor, starting on 41, there's several funds listed there that are all special revenue funds that are required to be accounted for separately and tracked separately. So there's a whole list of them. That all these get combined onto the other column that was listed on the government schedule. These are all the ones that make up that other fund column. And so those are all those minor funds that are listed. First the balance sheet, and then the income statement for those same funds. And then beyond that, in page 47, is a report on internal controls according to government auditing standards. And on this report, and this report is required for audits that are conducted under government auditing standards, and obviously the cities would be. So here's a report where we are required to, if we find any items that are significant, if there's a significant item that we encounter in internal deficiency and internal control, this is where we would note it. And there's two categories of deficiencies. One is called a material weakness. The other is called a significant deficiency. The material weakness is the more significant of the two, but those are the terms. And we did note on the first internal controls over financial reporting, we do have an item there that I'll refer to, noted as 2012-03. And then on the last paragraph, we have two items that we also noted, and which are listed on the following page, 49. And they are the same items that you would have seen in the previous audit report. A lot of the same circumstances carried over from one year to the next. And so because they were not completely addressed before the end of the year, they were required to be disclosed. But you'll notice the items are there. They've been addressed with administration, and I know they're taking steps to remedy these and see that they don't repeat as findings.
That's on 2012-01, it's investments, and that would be the reporting. Stop at 2012, you don't look into up to the beginning of the year, or
Correct. For the investment reports, it's through the end of September.
everything's till the end of September?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct, okay.
Yes.
And so you've addressed that with the city manager, and we understand what is needing to be done to make those,
Yes, ma'am. They've
Be
taken,
done.
and if
like we're reviewing something today.
there's an agenda item for that today also, to try to bring
Quarterly.
that current. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then the other one is the minutes, and I think we've discussed that at nausea here.
Yeah.
And I just want to report to this commission that Mr. Rodriguez has got us current, I guess, up to March. We've been working on that, and I'm just asking that we continue that progress, and with the minutes, and then expecting to see the city minutes in the very next meeting. I know we're 2 months behind now, but we just need, circumstances have happened. But that's something that we've been very diligent about, I have, and I know that Mr. Rodriguez understands that too. And so I'm just requesting that we continue on that path, and that every meeting, we see the next minutes at the next meeting, so that we don't fall behind. So,
That would be ideal, Mayor, that it stays current. And the third item deals with the financial reporting and the closeout of the year. And the city has through some staff changes, and so that has led to some delays in the end of the year accounting. And again, the city finds itself in that same predicament right now, that same as it happened in the previous year. So I know Mr. Rodriguez is working to try to quickly fill those positions to be able to remedy the situation so that it doesn't cause any delays in the future reports. And then finally, Mayor, on page 52 and 53, this is a listing of your schedule of federal awards. And so it lists the different sources that the city was able to tap into and take advantage of through grants and awarded to the city to be able to conduct business and provide specific services based upon the grant restrictions. But all in all, it helps the city fund programs. And so the city did expend $482,000 worth of federal grants, which is over and above funding that would have had to have been obtained from your local taxpayers or through other means. So that does help. Anytime the city can tap into these grants and to help further the city, then it's always a good expenditure to undertake to try to acquire those grants. And so I wanted to point those out to you because I know it does help the city in its operations. Just to recap, Mayor, the city did end the general fund's fund balance did end the year at $3.1 million, which is a very slight decrease from the previous year. And so when you look at, we typically recommend that the city keep multiple months' worth of fund balance available in case of an emergency, if there's some catastrophe that occurs. So you have $3.1 million, and if you notice, your expenditures for the year were $9 million. So you have about a third of the year's expenditures in the general fund covered by your fund balance. So if for whatever reason you couldn't have tax collections, September, October, November, or October, November, December, you still have monies available here to help fund and continue operations for the city while the emergency gets resolved and things go back to a more normal situation. So it does help that you do have those available to in the event that it's needed. So that's all. I point that out because it's always good. 3 months is a good benchmark for us. For us, I think we feel helps put the city in a good position, and so it's a good position.
So a statutory requirement?
Commissioner, I'm not aware of one. School districts do have one, but I know of the municipalities.
We have it as a policy.
Guideline,
We have it
more
as
of a
policy.
guideline.
Of how much? So,
But we're well within that. Great.
are there any questions for Mr. Garza from any of the members of the commission?
Mr. Garza, in reviewing this document, it's for a layperson, it's actually a little bit difficult. And so I guess at the end of the day, when we look at this, in the simplest of terms, how would you characterize this audit?
The results of the audit, we issued an unqualified opinion, which means, Commissioner, that we didn't find anything through internal controls or in operations that we felt were not in compliance with policies and procedures that would require us to disclose it. So in that sense, we did, all the testing we did, we found that the procedures were being adhered to and followed. And whether it be in capital outlay, whether it be in your operating expenses or in payroll, we didn't find any areas of concern. The documentation we found, adequately justified the expenditures, and the revenues were able to document the sources of the revenues, and so we felt very comfortable with those. As far as
So would you say generally good with some room for improvement?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, there is always room for improvement.
Absolutely.
And after a while, it becomes an issue of how much can you afford to spend to improve the controls, because then you get to an economies of scale. And so you try to do the best you can within the means you have available.
And I think, considering the economy as it has been, for us to be able to still be within our budget is important. And I think that you said it very adequately when you were talking about specifically our department heads were not spending money just because it was there. They were spending as needed, and because of that, in some areas, we were able to realize some savings. And so I think that's, our hats off to all the department heads for their effort on that, because that is difficult in these times, but it's also a testament to them also minding their P's and Q's, and that's what we all depend on, not only as a city commission, but also the citizens of our community can rest assured that, they're being diligent with their work. And so thank you all to the department heads for your diligence in that.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. Appreciate you being here.
Staff, because an audit can't be done, by ourselves alone. It takes quite a assistance from the staff, and in anywhere we turned, anything we asked for, they were ready to provide it, and so it makes the process much smoother. And it takes both entities to work together to be able to produce the audits. So I do appreciate that, and would like to publicly thank everybody for the assistance on that.
Thank you very much. I'd like to recognize that we have Commissioner Palacios present here tonight. Thank you for being here with us, and they'll be in a presentation. But I'm also been asked to accommodate Mr. Vela, who has another pressing matter on one of our items. So I'm going to go ahead and call that out of order. That would be under Section 6, Public Hearing Ordinances. Item A, consider an ordinance authorizing the issuance, sale, and delivery of City of San Juan, Texas Water Works and Sewer System Revenue Bond Series 2013-A in the aggregate principal amount of $6,170,000, providing for the payment of the bonds from a first lien on the pledge of the net revenues of the city's waterworks and sewer system, resolving other matters incident and relating to the issuance, payment, sale, and delivery of the bonds, approving an application to and the lending rate scale offered by the Texas Water Development Board under its Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, and making other provisions regarding such bonds and matters incident thereto. Mr. Vela, forward, Mr. Rodriguez, if you want to, or just go straight to Mr. Vela.
We can go straight to Mr. Vela,
Right.
Mayor, and I'll chime in as you
Okay,
might
Mr.
require
Vela?
me.
Good evening.
For the record, my name is Chris Vela. We're for Southwest Company Financial Advisors to the city. Mayor, as a brief history, as you recall, the City Commission authorizes staff and its consultants to apply for assistance from the Texas Water Development Board for the improvements to the water treatment plant. And received a loan of $6,170,000 and a grant of $2,586,000 to be awarded. We at a previous meeting, had apprised the city commission of the schedule that we were going to proceed, and we're here on the first reading of the ordinance that authorizes it. We will, next week, on June 4th, after the approval of this first reading, we'll be setting rates or pricing the actual maturities and the bonds from the Water Development Board, and then we will be coming back to you on the 11th to actually approve the pricing, and then we can have the actual debt service schedules, because at this time, we don't have the pricing data from the Water Development Board.
And that means, that would be to lock in the rates, is that correct?
And at that time, we can update all our sheets and present that to you.
Very good.
Going on our schedule, we're assuming delivery and proceeds to the escrow agent and paying agent on July 16th this year.
Okay.
Mr. Vela, I see here that, that the bond issuance is going to be for 6.17 million, but the total is 8.756, which, and I recall from our meeting in Austin, that we'll be getting loan forgiveness. But are they, I was under the impression that we had to borrow and then it would be forgiven, but you're saying that that's going to come up front? No, it's a total amount. Plus the loan forgiveness equals the total project. But the loan forgiveness is something that's already going to be given up front by the Water Development Board?
We're not financing 8 million, is,
No, not at all. Okay, that's where my. Loan forgiveness is a convenient term that has been adopted by the Water Development Board, but it's actually synonymous with a grant in our terms. Wanted to confuse us a little, keep us on our toes.
very good. So by July 16th, 2003, we'll be having those monies, and then that'll be in our possession, and we're able to start our process.
Proceed with construction depending on engineering and the Water Development Board and other requirements.
Okay,
Towards that point.
very good. And these debt is going to be paid out of that fund only, correct?
Out of the utility fund,
Yes,
as the auditor mentioned.
correct.
And remember the term that I used when we were doing the calculations, the net revenues that are available for debt service.
And once you get those, then we'll be able to discuss how we're meeting those debts and,
Update the sheets that we provided and be able to provide the updated capacity for additional issues.
very good, very good. Are there any other questions for Mr. Vela? Go ahead.
Vela, these documents, the ordinance was prepared by the bond council? Okay. And they're recommending that they be approved?
Add?
No, Mayor, just pointing out that it's been a long road, long process, but I think we finally see it coming to fruition, certainly with the assistance of our project engineers and Mr. Vela and our bond counselors. So looking forward to the opportunity to put this out to bid and begin moving dirt out there, Mayor. So it should be forthcoming.
There are no questions. There a motion for approval? It was moved by Commissioner Suarez, second by Mayor Pro Tem. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Vela.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
that.
Mr. Vela, appreciate it.
Going back to under presentations, to call, if you don't mind, like get the commissioner to come out here first, is that okay? Appreciate that. Under C, update on the Minnesota Road Area Drainage Project. Mr. Rodriguez, and I think at this point we ask our commissioner if you can come forward, and we also have Mr.
his
Vargas?
staff. I visited with Commissioner Palacios and his staff about a week and a half ago, Mayor, and he expressed an interest to come by along with staff and his project engineer to provide an update on the Minnesota Road Drainage Project. Again, that's one that took a little bit of time, but I think Commissioner and Mr. Gutierrez, the project engineer, have fantastic news for the city of San Juan and our residents, Mayor. So with that in mind.
Welcome, Commissioner. You can introduce your staff that you got with you for the record.
The opportunity to come before you and give you a status report on the drainage project that we're working with the city. And I'm happy to report that we're almost to the end of the project. I'd say almost, un poquito más. I've got little minutes with the engineer for the project, which is Garo, who's administrator, and I got people back. And I'll take the report of the project and then to give you a brief.
Very good. Mr. Gutierrez, can they move that microphone a little closer to you, because I can't?
Well, we can still
Did y'all
hear
move it because it was too loud, or what?
No, it was,
What?
it doesn't fit correctly on there, Mayor.
Okay.
So just take it
Don't-
off.
Don't
Can-
drop
can-
it, in
can you
other
hear me?
words.
All right.
You're fine.
Basically, the project, I would say, is 99% done. It's, all the pipe work, everything that was done on the Primavera number 2 subdivision area, that's all been completed. That was done by a contractor, and we already closed out that contract. They finished the work. Then the work on the north side of Minnesota Road was being done by County Forces, and they've done all the pipe work, they've done all the excavation, and they're just working on putting concrete riprap on the ends. That's basically a erosion control measure, and they're almost finished with it. So, like I said, I would call it 99% done, and they're hoping to finish this week, and maybe a little cleanup next week, and that would be, then we'd be having a final inspection.
Wonderful. I know that they're very happy to hear that, too.
Romero, you may want to point out that the project is 99% complete. If we have a heavy rain, we missed that one. Pero you can see the difference in people in the colonia, in that area. Can rest assured that a big rain, we can handle that. I say we, the project, and we should not experience any flooding, which should be a relief for the subdivisions in the area. And barring another hurricane coming in, we're still in good shape. We can handle most of the water. So for the most part, dale pa adelante. That's it, it's good.
Wonderful.
Yeah, basically, the project's already functional. It'll function.
I know that the folks have waited a while, and many attempts have been made, and this one,
Well, I would like to point out that we appreciate the cooperation and understanding from the residents in that area. They can be very tolerant, but they know and they see us working day in, day out. And we're doing as much as we can, as quickly as we can, and we just about got it done. So
wonderful, Commissioner, we're very grateful for the time and the monies, very particularly.
well, talking about, Raul would give you some information regarding some of the expenditures that,
Sure.
that have gone in realizing the project. So Raul is a numbers man.
Mayor, Commissioners, Raul Seguero. As you know, you all entered into this agreement with the county using the $600,000 grant that FEMA gave or awarded the city after Hurricane Dali. And we agreed to improve the project, to make it bigger, to benefit more residents. This is a little summary of what we spent to date. I kind of broke it up into cash and force account. If you look at the first set of in cash, we spent about a little over $1 million, $1,085,000, of which 392 was for the contracted part of the project. That's what we paid the contractor. We spent 272,900 and change in materials, 232,000 in right-of-way acquisitions, and 186,926 in engineering. That's a little over $1 million. In addition to that, we used the county staff and county equipment for the majority of the construction of the project, and the value of that was $950,000. So overall, to date, 99% of the expenditures, we have a little bit left. We spent a little over $2 million, which is substantially more than the $600,000. You can see that the project is 4 times as big as what was initially designed. So I think overall, the county has worked well with the city in making this a good project.
Absolutely.
Point out.
Well, the $950,000 is the value of the staff, the cost of the staff and the materials that we do not have to spend in cash, we have the staff on board. And
So we did it by using county forces. There was a savings in real money of $900,000. So,
I think it was definitely a very successful. We're looking forward to the time that we can turn it over and let it rain.
last week, I had a reporter, I think it was Channel 5, called me and asking what the precinct was doing to prepare for hurricane season, and I gave her a variety of projects, and I mentioned Minnesota, so she wanted to go see it, and so we arranged for her to go see it, and I think there was a little article, notice on the news last week, where and she visited with some of the residents, and I think that was a good.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. On behalf of the city of San Juan, all the commission, and of course, especially our residents and those who are directly impacted, want to thank you for all the work that was done and the funds that were spent and the interest in this project and making it real. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
I've asked the engineer to give us a picture of what area is included in this particular project.
Okay?
Okay, the service area, basically, the area being served by this drainage improvement is bounded by Nolana on the south, Raul Longoria on the west, Owasa on the north, and all the way to the canal, irrigation district canal. You have Arcoiris, which has had problems. They should be helped tremendously, and then you got the two Primavera subdivisions that'll be helped a lot. And Las Palmas subdivision, the water from Primavera number 2 used to drain through Las Palmas, so that would be a lot of water going through Las Palmas in addition to their own. That got cut off, so now they should be in a lot better shape because all they have to worry, they got the same drainage system, but only have to worry about their own water. So that'll be helped a lot as well. And areas that'll develop in the area along Minnesota Road will have an outfall directly on top, both Minnesota and Owasa.
Thank you.
Just one other
No
comment.
problem. Go ahead.
And there's a workshop scheduled for tomorrow,
That's correct.
okay? And we'll be talking about other projects that the city and the county will be looking at and see if we can develop some interlocals so the county can come in and help the city with some of the projects that are being considered.
Looking forward to it. Bring a checkbook, sir.
Up to you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and for the presentation.
Very much.
Any questions for the commission?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. Now going on to item B, presentation on hurricane preparedness in the city of San Juan by Chief Tirso Garza.
Commissioners? Well, I guess the commissioner pretty much took care of the areas of concern, so we're ready for some rain. As we speak right now, As we get ready, of course, we take follow our procedures, which I get together with Mr. Rojas and Trini to make sure everything is pretty much, and of course, Parks and Rec with Gus, that we have everything prepared for the buildings, for our generators, and have everything ready with Trini. As far as generators, we were awarded a grant in early December for a generator in case some of the lift stations go out. We have a portable generator for that. Matter of fact, we've gotten 2. Sandbags, we've got over 5,000 sandbags ready for, should we get any rain. And as we speak right now, something is already brewing in the Pacific that is possibly going into the Gulf. We'll find out by Thursday to see where that heads, but it could put us to the test. And I think the areas that Commissioner Palacio discussed was areas of our concern, a lot of concern. So they've been addressed. So other than that, it's just a matter of waiting, being prepared. As far as staff, we're pretty much equipped already. And we go through this procedure every year, so we usually start at the beginning of February and March to make sure we're prepared. So we're pretty much ready to go.
Very good,
I hope they don't put us to the test, but should something come our way, we're ready.
very good.
Any questions?
I've got, but maybe it's not you that would be answering, I don't see Mr. Cantu. We checked all the drains, the gutters, and we've been
That's
cleaning
Mr.
that
Rojas.
up and.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
And gone in to do
Uh,
I know, we got a vacuum to go in there and take a look and clean out. All that's been done?
And of course, we added a new Vector truck to
Right.
our equipment, so in case we need it, we've got a brand-new one should the need arise. But other than that, we're pretty much ready to go.
This time along, we've got the red code.
Oh,
Code
well,
red.
yes, ma'am.
Code red.
Okay, well, we're the only ones here in the valley that have the whole package as far as the weather alerts. Everybody else is just looking into it. But we've got 3,700 residents already signed up, so should we have any weather alerts or anything, we'll be utilizing the Code Red.
On that as we get closer to,
Definitely. We could take
I guess
that.
this weekend's the beginning of hurricane season.
Saturday it starts.
Yeah, maybe we need to do some more of that PSA work, but thank
Yes,
you
sir.
for all the work you've done on
Yes,
that
sir.
too, Chief.
We'll get it taken care of.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Next item on the agenda, D, project update by Ronnie Cruz, PE, on the following matters: 2011 flood drainage improvements project, expansion of water treatment plant number 2, 16-inch water transfer line, lift stations rehabilitation project, update on the Clean Water Revolving Fund, Clean Water State Revolving Fund and Drinking Water State Revolving Fund application submitted to the Texas Water Development Board on March 1st, 2013. 1, the CWSRD collection system improvements, first-time sewer connections, CWSRD lift station rehabilitation project, Texas Water Development Board project number 73637, and DWSRF water treatment plant number 2, raw water reservoir improvements, planning, acquisition, and design project. Mr. Cruz?
Packets, I submitted the memo. If, you want me to go over every one of the projects, or would you,
Yeah.
everyone, okay, the first one that we have there is the flood drainage project. That's the one that's over there on Cougar and Buffalo Street and Oblate Street, in that area where the gas company has been relocating a gas line. I know they're done. So the construction will probably begin within the next 2 or 3 weeks when, or sooner, depends on when. We're using a pipe that's a plastic pipe instead of the concrete reinforced pipe to bring the price down, and it's being manufactured, so it should be ready first week of June is what they said, so we'll update that on that one. The contractor is Castle Enterprises. They got approved finally by the county for an amount of $229,973.00, which they were a little bit. You all awarded, I mean, the county awarded that. This is an urban county project, so the county awarded this. Any questions on that project? The next one is the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant number 2. Chris hit on this one. This is basically the funds that are going to be available. So we like to bid the project in August, once the closing in July, after all the paperwork is finished up, we're going to start bidding the project in August. That's what the schedule is.
And then everything else that you've listed comes after, once we've got all the bids in and,
If everything goes on schedule, that's what the schedule is. In October, we like to award the contract. In December, start the project, and then, of course, completion is about a year and a half away, May of 2015. That's what the projected dates are. And we've been updating these dates every time we speak with Chris and with JJ about the Water Development Board funds being available, which is also the next project. The next project is a 16-inch water transfer line. That goes the same time the water plant goes. When we start that one, we start the other one. Of course, this one, the projected timeframe is a lot sooner. It's about 8 months to be able to do this project. This is the transfer line of treated water from the plant number 2, which is the one on I Road, to plant number 1 by City Hall. It's a 16-inch transfer line of treated water to the reservoirs that are there, to the storage that you have there at the plant. So the bid date on this one, we also like to go in August. The construction contract in October, start December, and projected is August 2014 will be completed.
On this one, this is also a loan.
This is a $1.4 million loan with forgiveness of, which is a grant of $600,000 on this.
But it's separate from the
Yes,
bond issuance. And
Yes.
this is a loan directly through the Water Development Board.
yes.
Okay, and the reason I make that distinction is because of the interest that this one will accrue is significantly lower than if we were to have gone out for bond issuance.
Actually, I believe it's the same structure,
Same
Mayor Pro Tem,
structure.
as the water plant.
Yeah.
It's just a different package because of the application process. This one, we delayed a little bit because we were not sure as to the right-of-ways and easements that were required, so we didn't want to delay the water plant, which was a bigger component. But it's essentially the same structure. That should be forthcoming as far as the closing process as well.
The total that will be financed is,
Mayor, as far as if you look at the water plant, it's 6.1 million plus the 1.4 million, so you're talking about financing approximately $7.5 million, with a remainder being debt forgiveness between the, let's say, the, basically, and we've had some other debt forgiveness along the way on other smaller projects, so it's.
We're hoping for
it's a-
more?
Absolutely, yes. sir.
Okay,
We can manage the financing aspect.
yes.
Any questions on those two? The next one is the lift stations rehab project. That's been going on. We're waiting for the environmental document to be approved. It was submitted in November 2012. We have preliminary approval, and it's scheduled for public hearing here at this place for June 24th, 2013, at, I think it's a Monday, from 4 to 6 here at the library. And after that, the document will be complete, and then we can proceed with finishing up the design, even though we're about 50% today on the design and surveying of that project. That's rehabbing about 6 existing lift stations and redirecting some and eliminating some lift stations.
Is there anything of significance on the environmental?
There's some issues, but not big issues, something about a palm tree with a bird on it or something, and I'm serious. But it's not gonna be, I think we'll just go around it, I mean,
There's not anything that would
No.
delay the project?
no. The next one is just updates on the clean water SRF and the drinking water SRF that are in the Texas Water Development Board. The first time, these were submitted to the Texas Water Development Board on March 1st, which was for this year, in 2013. One of them was the clean collection system for first-time sewer connections. The next one was the lift station rehab project, which is, on the rehab project, the one that before, item number 4, is for the pad and design. This one's for the actual construction money, B. And C is a water treatment plant number 2, the reservoir. Now we're applying for the reservoir when it got cleared of the lawsuit. Now we're applying for planning and design for the reservoir. And these have been approved. That one has been approved. We're ready for loan closing, that one in July also, for the reservoir, for the pad.
the other applications are just still pending, is that what you're saying, or?
A is pending. B is also pending, but I think it looks pretty good, right? The lift station. It's proceeding because you have the pad. Since you have the planning and design already done, when you go apply for the construction money, it's a lot easier to get them approved and to get them through there because you've already invested something in the project. So,
If I may add, Mayor, the reason why the engineers recommended, and I concur, that we break it up is because that lift station project, if you'll recall, is not just the 6 lift stations that Mr. Cruz is alluding to. It also includes a 16-inch main that's going to transport or basically convey wastewater from the north side of San Juan to the south side along Cesar Chavez to Whole Acres and then back to the sewer plant. It was an issue of easements right-of-ways, just like the transfer line that we discussed earlier. So in order not to jeopardize the process and not have tangible dates that we could provide to the Water Development Board, we opted to go for the PAD process, the planning, acquisition, and design, finish the design with the hopes that they would proceed and fund us also for construction. So as Mr. Cruz says, it looks favorable. We just need to finish the one step before we can go on to the next one. And so we're in process to do that.
And in tomorrow's meeting, when we discuss infrastructure, we'll be able to talk about timing for us to be able to pay or take out debt on any of these that are still pending, because I remember that's a discussion we'd had previously, that although the application is in, we still have to figure out how we're going to pay for it if it gets approved.
Right. I think Mr. Vela will be able to recap that in
Okay.
a better manner in regard to numbers and
Right.
timing, Mayor. But I'll just give you just a basic comment that every application process is done in conjunction with a financial advisor and the bond counsel. So all of that is closely monitored by the Water Development Board. So it would not, quite frankly, make sense to put in an application knowing that we could not fund it because they would reject it at that point and basically say, you don't have the debt capacity to do that. So that's why I think we're in good position to have this transition from one point to the other. But I think we can discuss it more at length tomorrow when
Okay.
the folks are available.
Okay. Go ahead. Was that the last one?
any questions on any of the 3 Water Development Board projects? Some of these, like Mr. Rodriguez said, tomorrow we're going to really go in depth with this. And we also have those brochures I passed out. Also, we have one more that I need to give you all.
Very
before-
good.
before
Thank
the
you,
end of the
Mr.
day.
Cruz. Moving on the agenda, under action items, first, I've got B, C, D, and E. They're all final approvals of the last, but let me go ahead and read them and take them one by one. I'm sorry, let me go back to the public hearing on the grants. Thank you. Item B, under public hearings, hold a public hearing for grant application, pound 20, numbers 2012DJBX0986, in the amount of $13,548, under the Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Assistance Grant Program. I'd like to open this public hearing at 7:16, and Ms. Wood, would you come forward and talk to us about this application? Good evening.
This is a grant that was received by the police department, and this is part of the grant process which to finalize for reimbursement. And it's for a purchase of digital-based radio and 4 portable radios that were issued to patrol units.
Say it again, they're for the what?
I'm sorry?
Say it again?
It was for 1 digital-based radio and 4 portable radios that were issued to the patrol units.
Okay. So we asked for questions from the public regarding this grant and the application, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's open to anybody in the public if they have any questions or any comments regarding this grant. Anybody from the public? There being none, I'm going to close this public, oh, I'm sorry, the commission. Does the commission have any questions? I'd like to close this public hearing at 7:17. That being said, is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Wood. Item C is consider second and final reading of an ordinance for the rezoning request from single-family residential district to general business district for property located on 4710 North Raul Longoria, legally described as Lot 2, Red Barn subdivision, located on southwest corner of Pecan Street and Raul Longoria, as requested by the city of San Juan. Mr. Cervantes?
If I may just.
Sure.
Considering that C, D, E, F, and G are second and final readings.
Read them all
certainly-
together?
Yeah, if we can
Sure,
just
I
read
can
them
do
all
that.
together and vote on them, and
Okay, not a problem.
unless there's an objection.
We can do that. Okay, sure. Let me go ahead and do that, and if there's anything else you want to add, Mr. Cervantes, please do. Under D, consider second and final reading of an ordinance for the rezoning request, Track 1, from Single Family Residential District RS to General Business District C2 4.0, 0.323 acre tract of land out of Lot 16, Block 8, John Klausner Subdivision, Track 2, from Single Family Residential District to Multifamily Residential District for 3.225 acre tract of land out of Lot 16, Block and 8, John Klausner Subdivision, as requested by Natalia Valderas. Consider second and final hearing on ordinance providing for a special use permit for the one-premise consumption of alcohol at the future restaurant San Miguel, located at 5004 North Raul Longoria, legally described as Lot 3, Mesquite Acre Subdivision, located at southwest corner of Mesquite Drive and Raul Longoria Road, as requested by Cindy Carina Solis. F, consider second and final reading of an ordinance provided for a conditional use permit to open a drive-in business at Bear Snow Cone, located at 700 West US Business 83, legally described as west 50 feet, and the east 100 feet of Lot 59 ML Woods, number 6 subdivision, as requested by Ruperto Vaca. And G, consider second and final hearing on ordinance provided for a conditional use permit to operate a drive-in business at Charlie's Drive-Thru, located at 912 East US Business 83, legally described as Lot 1, Mireles subdivision, as requested by Maribel Garcia. Mr. Cervantes, has there been any change on any? None? All right. Are there any questions from the commission? None. Is there a motion for approval?
Can we do a motion to approve all of them at once? Yes. Okay. I'm sorry?
List A,
Okay.
C, D.
There are the numbers.
I make a motion to approve items C, D, E, F, and G.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you,
Mayor,
Mr.
If I
Cervantes.
could just make a quick comment.
Sure.
On these second and final reading of ordinances, if we could add them to the consent agenda, and if there's any questions, as with any of the other items in the future, I mean, we could always just pull them out individually, if that's okay with everyone. Great, thank you.
Consent agenda, item A, approval of minutes for March 13, 2013. B, monthly report, collection report, April 2013. And C, consider approval of City of San Juan, Texas quarterly investment report dated March 31st, 2013, as required by public funds. I'd like to pull item C out, and I'd like to go ahead and tender at this time corrections on minutes to Mr. Rodriguez. And on item, the report, I wanted to ask, I know one of the recommendations that was made, I think it was at the last audit throughout the year, for the coming year, was that we, as we were investing, that we were putting our maturity dates at different times. And I looked, and maybe I missed it, I looked for the maturity dates on the investment tools that we have, and I couldn't tell. But did we do that with, so that we could have liquidity, we had CDs, and then we placed them at different times?
They're basically rolling, Mayor. I think as CDs.
Because they weren't, and that was one of the concerns.
Right. I think we've been doing it in such a way that we have, there's always something that is maturing and then invested again, so we don't have everything invested.
That we
or
couldn't take
tied up.
money should we need
Exactly.
something else.
Exactly.
Okay, I just didn't see that on.
And we can add that, Mayor. The format that you see, I think, is consistent with what the minimum of the state statute requirements, but we can certainly add that so that you can see the,
To monitor that,
yes, ma'am.
okay.
Maybe just do one report which has that information available
That would be good,
And
at
as an
whenever the
addendum.
beginning of the year.
as an addendum to this. Yeah.
And what are we, and I know these was one of the concerns that we would be making them timely. What are we doing to assure that?
Basically, it was a double whammy, Mayor. In the process of catching up, we were still lagging a little bit behind. I think Mr. Garza, the auditor, the discussion I had with him on Friday prior to him coming before you to present was just to do it as soon as we can after the quarter is over and we get all the data from the bank. He said probably 30 days would be advisable, no more than that. So I think we're in the process of doing that, Mayor. I think, and I can report to you that I'm looking at a final candidate for the finance director position. I think once that individual or that position is filled, I think that'll assist me in ensuring that we can track this a little bit more efficiently with the team in regard to the auditor's remarks and his concerns.
Absolutely.
So you'll review that with them once we meet.
Absolutely. In fact, we're going to have a meeting with the auditor as soon as the person comes on board.
Great.
So we'll address all of that.
Very good. Any questions from anybody else?
Ms. Flores, you're the one that's currently preparing these documents? No?
She was she prepared the last one, Mayor Pro Tem, but I
Okay.
think we'll have a
You're first and last.
first and last.
Well, thank you very much. Good work.
The work that you did, and we're still here. You just change your mind. If nothing else, then is there a motion for approval?
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
And we are approving A, B, and C. All in favor state aye. Aye. Passes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is executive session. The City of San Juan Commission will go into closed session pursuant to the provision of Chapter 551, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirements that meetings be open, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, in accordance with A, discuss and possible action on status of litigation on the installation of the reservoir liner at the water plant number 2, cause number C-2930-8, and we'll go into executive session at 7:23.
Chief Gonzalez.
Come on, Bob, chicken.
It's there, I mean, I can bring it tomorrow. Okay, yeah, just bring it over tomorrow. But if you will do it and acabarlo de verdad, I didn't put, es que andábamos a la carrera. You know how the big coffee maker, I didn't put the little thing that goes in the bottom? Espérate, it didn't go.
I'll get you. Okay. What was your request on that one originally, like 50? Originally it was 50? What was the original grant request for the radios, 50? It was much more, about 85, yeah. Yeah, it's about 15, I'll get that before.
Reconvening again into open session from executive session regarding A, discussion and possible action on the status of litigation on the installation of the reservoir liner at the water plant number 2, cause number. Reconvening back at 7:35 from the discussion and possible action of the status of litigation on the installation of the reservoir liner at the water plant number 2, cause number C-2930-08G. Council?
Yes, Mayor and members of the commission, I recommend a motion approving the final portion of this litigation for settlement as discussed in executive session.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
A motion is approved. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Commissioner Suarez. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned at 7:35.
Yes, please don't kill any more trees. Yes.